Charlamagne takes shots at Joe Budden.
Do we need 2.5 hour podcast? Do we need 3 hour podcasts? I'm asking. I really don't know. Is this 3 hour? I love all of the guys that do long form content.
Yeah.
I don't want to take 3 days to get through the pod. Bro.
Yeah, I think people are at work for a long time, bro.
3 hours?
I think people work for like 9 hours.
God damn.
Every day.
That's right. At the last episode of Brilliant Idiots, there was no shortage of shots at Joe Budden, but also including the JBP in general and how they do business over there. Now, this starts off a little bit into the episode where they start to clown the length of pods, talking about, man, 2 hour, 3 hour pods. I don't know if I want to do all that. And who does 2 to 3 hour pods? Joe Budden. And he's also talking about other things that is very specific to Joe Budden. One example is a shot calling Chris Monroe the Podfather. Chris Monroe is one of the founders of the Loudspeaker Network, kind of like a precursor to what podcasting would become. A lot of people from there went on to do big things. A lot of people from there went on to get like Taxstone. Obviously, things went wrong for him. But overall, this whole podcast was interesting. And even Andrew Schultz said something like, people pod for like 9 hours and people be at work all day listening to them. And I think it's interesting because for the most part, this is a shot at the Joe Budden podcast operation. And even Andrew says something a little bit into it where he says, people are mad they're not getting the looks I'm getting. And could that be in regard to Joe? You know, Joe just took some shots at Andrew Schultz, basically calling him a race-baiting comedian.
It's not just people dislike Schultz. A lot of people feel like he should be the last one to do any racial negative, black racial undertone black people used to get by yada. He should be the last one to do that because of his
affiliation with the culture,
his entryway, his affiliation.
But that wasn't the only thing Charlamagne said. He also took aim at podcast reactors by saying podcast reactors are out there and they don't do any research.
You know, you watch some of these reaction channels or you watch some of these podcasts about podcasts, you don't even know what you're talking about. And you haven't even had the success of any of the people that you're talking about.
Now, that could be aimed at a lot of people. That could be aimed at, creators that make content like this. So we have to watch out. Charlamagne is like Joe, kind of a narcissist. So he probably watches everything about him. And when he watches those, he's like, that's not exactly what happened. Well, I would caution Charlamagne and even folks who get on these big platforms, listen, dog, y'all not well-researched either to be passing judgment. In addition to that, all of you guys are the reactors of the past. Radio hosts, podcast hosts, you've all made a living off of talking about people like Drake. A lot of you made a lot of money off talking about Drake, Kendrick, and others. Do you say thank you to them? I've never heard Charlamagne say thank you to Drake, to Lil Mama. Has he done that? No. So it's a bit hypocritical, but Charlamagne is a hypocritical man. A very successful hypocritical person who, by the way, used to tear down people viciously. Remember Lakeith Stanfield? Made Lil Mama cry? So before he looks at the podcast reactors as being people who don't do research, gotta look in the mirror, dog. You have a way negative history than the reactors do. But to recap, the Brilliant Idiots just took a load of shots at Joe Budden. They don't say his name because that's kind of what they do now. With Charlamagne saying pods be too long, Andrew Schultz saying people are mad at the looks he's getting, and even Charlamagne calling Chris Monroe the Podfather because Joe Budden is often regarded as the Podfather. And it's Chris Monroe. I've been saying it wrong. I think it's Chris Monroe, like he's a president. All right, but let me know what you think. Do you think I'm reaching? I got to tell you, I'm not reaching. I'm teaching. So let me know what you think in the comments. Brilliant Idiots, been better than the JBP, but they only drop once a week. I do wonder how good the Joe Budden podcast would be if it dropped once a week. That would be fascinating. Maybe they could get back to their glory days. And I want to shout out my main man, Roderick, on Twitter. He's the one that put me onto this and told me about everything that was happening. And he kind of gave me a lead on what's happening with the Brilliant Idiots. Shout out to Roderick. You the homie. All right, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Tap in with me on Patreon, The Stop. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.